nobody from Essex picks up the phone and speaks to the Met, because, and the big one is, of course, Billy Jasper himself was an informant, a trusted informant for the Met. Now, if they'd have just phoned up and given his name to SO10, his informant handler, Rowley Baker, would have come down and sat down and told them the truth about Billy Jasper.
Which, again, if he was an informant, that sort of pretty much tells you that he was giving the right information, doesn't it?
He would listen. I worked on some of his work. I didn't know I worked on his work, but having now spoken to Rowley Baker, I'd actually worked on some of the jobs that he had put up. Gerard Chewett, the RA quartermaster who escaped from prison, MUDER, who got shot dead subsequently. We worked on all those jobs. He was putting up the top level information. So, you know, you can't just discount what he had to say.
I'll move on to the next question. David, you've been very active on social media in the last few weeks. Can you give us a summary of what you're highlighting and any new information obtained?
I've gone over some of that already. The reason that I've been active on social media for a while, we're just trying to keep it in the public domain. The reality is that, you know, you need to keep putting stuff out there to keep things alive. And so it's been in the national media, it's been on social media, but on various things I put up this week or last week was Operation Century, obviously culminating in the truth about the Sarah Saunders bug. We raised concerns about the footprints, and Albert's dealt with the scene before, and the fact that they miss footprints that could potentially be Reebok prints, which is what Billy Jasper talks about. There's clearly a high-tech trainer print now. You know, what's a high-tech trainer print doing in the middle of a crime scene? You know, particularly when Billy Jasper is saying the men who were involved in the murders, as is the other witness, the new witness, is saying they were wearing trainers, you know, in the snow. It's quite significant. Yeah. And so what we're trying to do is just get a lot of this information stuff we're talking to you about today out into the public domain. You know, one of the other bigger ones, but big things, is we've got the fact that we've now spoken to the handler of a very well-known man who is quite noisy around this case, who we've known since June 2020 was an informant. He kept it quiet for a long while, but his information is what started this whole debacle. Literally straight after the murders, he went to his handler and named Michael Steele as being involved in the murders, and his handler then got hold of a second source, took that source to Essex Police Headquarters. That second source, who we've also spoken to, according to the handler, says that Michael Steele's name was put up as being responsible. So you had two informants saying it was Michael Steele. The other source is telling us, well, actually, no, that's not what happened. I was being told by Essex Police that it was Michael Steele, and I went along with it. So you then get this whole blinkered beginning to this investigation, but it all starts with one particular man and one particular informant who was run by the same police officer.
Move on to the next question. Albert, I know you've spent a considerable amount of time on the victim and suspect timeline. Has anything new been uncovered, or have you not shared with us historically?
The answer to that is I'm still actually working on it. I was going to say something here that probably confuse it, but my main concern is, were the jury aware that Jack Wooms at 12 minutes past 5 was in Sudbury at the caravan park where he went to talk about a digger or a piece of equipment from Meadow Road. So at 12 minutes past 5 we have Jack Wooms and his cell site puts him bouncing off the Sudbury mast up in Suffolk. Is it Suffolk? Yeah. Yep. Suffolk, Sudbury, which is a 23-minute drive away from Marks Tay. So when you look at Nichols' account and he says that he turned up just after 5, then that doesn't fit. Yeah, then the earliest he could have been there is just after 5. Then when you look on to the next meeting place was the halfway house at 1830. Yeah, that is stated by Nichols twice in interview when the victims and the suspects come together. Obviously Steele, Wooms and Nichols and Tucker, Tate and Rolfe in the car park. That doesn't fit with the 1803 and 1809 calls that are made by Mr. Steele to Mr. Wooms, and the argument about he was in the car park, but Steele says he was in Bullpen just down the road, bouncing off the shoulder ditch mast, and Jury Hill being in the way. My point there is 1803 and 1809 don't fit, and he's never asked in interview. This is Darren Nichols is never asked in his interview what were those two calls about, because he had to have been with either Wooms or with Steele, yeah, at those times, wherever they were, yeah, if it was the truth. When you look at the meet time at Mark's Tay, yeah, which was 5 o'clock according to Nichols, when obviously he was on the phone with Steele in the afternoon, agreed to meet him at 5 o'clock. Well, that's never put an interview to him at all until his first witness statement. And when you look at the interviews of Wooms and Steele, they're actually told by the interviewing officers who have been briefed by Brown and Winston in that custody period time after the confession by Nichols, is that they met there not at 5 o'clock but 6, 1750 and 1800. I'll just repeat it. In his interviews, 1750 and 1800, put to them in interviews saying they were at Mark's Day. Well, that doesn't fit. Doesn't fit at all. And then when you move it on to 1844 and the arrival time at the top of the lane, that doesn't fit either, because you've got Nichols and you've got Wooms, yes, driving off to the top of the lane. It took them 21 minutes, and they've tested it. You know, they went out with the police in June 1996 and did that journey, and that's the time recorded. We've done it, and it takes, all right, you could be a minute or 2 minutes out, Google Map, route planner. So the earliest he could have got there is 1851. But the jury here, that is turning into the lane at 1844. Well, that doesn't fit. And when you look at the journey they've taken, they've gone all the way around the world to get to the murder scene, when they could have gone from there to there, killed him and gone back home again. Come on, guys, look at what you've got. It just doesn't fit. And I'm fed up saying it, but I'll say no more.
The bottom line is the timelines do not fit, full stop. But the important thing that everybody's ignored, and Albert's been raising it for some period of time, is really important. 12 minutes past 5, Jack Womes is in Sudbury, Suffolk. 12 minutes past 5. Darren Nichols is saying that he's already met Jack Womes in Mark's Tay at 5 o'clock.
Halfway hours.
So that's impossible. It's impossible. It's either.
Maybe he added the law in, like the Back to the Future.
Exactly.
It's probably more believable than the evidence.
Exactly. But the reality is, nobody, and I don't think the defence pulled it up, did they, at trial? They hadn't worked out the 12 minute past 5 call is in Sudbury, Suffolk. He cannot possibly ever be in Mark's Tay at 5 o'clock. Rubbish.
And another one, the south side of Wickford, the 1844 call, it's got a line of sight. It's there, yeah, because it's off the 404 antenna. So when you look at there, you've got, yeah, the Hungry Horse down there out of sight. You've got Retton Hill in the way, so you can't get a signal there. So 1844, my question is, where was Pat Tate? Right, where was Pat Tate at 1844? Well, Nichols tells the jury that they were turning into, or just about to go down into the lane because of what Steele told him, but that doesn't fit either. And when you listen to what the expert witness
David
Bristow says, it was never raised at trial, the triangulation in this 1844 down the lane. So there's lots of gaps and lots of concerns that I have. Has the jury been misled? Has the jury been told everything that they were entitled to, and was everything just dumped on the defence at lastminute.com? And it appears to be something like that. The telephone schedules are that high. How do you work out what we've taken 4 years, or I've taken 4 years, to get to close to the bottom of? And I'm not there yet. I'm still finding stuff, yeah, that just doesn't fit for me.
Okay, next question. Who would you still like to talk to regarding the review and any new information from those you have spoken to?
Can I just quickly go through this, because I put it there. Paul Edwards, come on, he's got to be seen. 3 contacts with the victims on the day, the 6th, and obviously before as well. Paul Edwards, we understand, is around, yeah, but I don't know what he looks like. Yeah, he hasn't come forward and said, okay, I'll tell you why I was ringing him. So he needs to be nicked. He needs to be interviewed and put to him what we've uncovered and what the intelligence on document 196 says about him. He was running a pub in South Ockenden for some heavy people. Ian Spindler, he's an interesting, I haven't raised him before, but going through Darren Nichols' interviews again, he comes up 3 or 4 times raised by Darren Nichols. What was Ian Spindler's involvement in this, if anything? So if Ian Spindler's listening, we want to talk to you, mate. So please pick up the phone and share with us what you know about the Retterton murders. Andrew Reynolds, interesting. I've asked 3, 4, 5 times now, would Andrew Reynolds come forward? He's key to me because he should have some background around the VW Polo. We were told it had gunshots in the side of it, gunshot damage, and that's what it went in for repairs. We don't know what it went in for. We're also told it was a bit of mechanical stuff. So Lizzie Fletcher, I can understand why she wants to put it behind her, but she hasn't helped us move it further forward to show that they couldn't have got to the lane as described because they picked up the pole and took it somewhere. Update on Billy Jasper. Well, he's back out. We believe he's local to his haunts. He's fallen out with close members of his family, and we'll hopefully be able to see him very soon. So he's out, and David and me are both keen to just sit down with them and tell us what else he knew happened that night. Peter King, now this is interesting. Peter King was a police photographer. We haven't got our head round the crime scene images, photographs that he took. His statement, I don't know where the hell it is, but we've tried everywhere to get a copy and we haven't physically read his statement. So keen to hear from Peter King and talk to him as to how he saw the crime scene and what he took from a exhibit's photograph perspective. PC Knight, he's a first responder, and we just want to know what footwear he was wearing on the 7th. A retired DC Mallory is very keen to point out on social media that Essex Police did have a Dunlop type welly issued job issue in 1995, and he showed his own. Yes, the sole impression does look similar to a Reebok, so we just need to bottom that out. If it's new evidence that supports the Crown's case, okay, we'll accept it, get on with it. But I need to understand how impressions could have got into mud and the timings of it and how it goes onto snow and you got mud on top of snow. So lots of areas that Essex have missed. And if you've got Jasper saying they were wearing trainers and you've got Nichols saying they were wearing wellies, then an action should have been raised to check the scene photographs and talk to the people who were there to see if there is any such impression. Well, there are impressions there, and we just need to make sure who they belong to. So that's work in progress. The police officer who, update on Michael Bowman, he was out of prison, he's now back in prison, doesn't come out until June. David's spoken to him. We're keen to just sit down with him and share his knowledge of the people he knew at the time. So, and also, he's already told David that he had nothing to do with the machine gun, but, you know, does he know more? I'm sure he does. The police officer who I've already mentioned it, but I'll say it again, the police officer who attended to the 999 call in the area of the Old Windmill Pub House in South Hanningfield Road on the 7th, we believe round about midnight or just after. So there was an emergency call, and did you attend? Please let us know who you are. And finally, I'm still trying. Dennis Wise, the man who gave that name, who rung the incident room on day 2 and said that at 8 o'clock the victims plus one other man were in the fortune of war, as I said, just after 8 o'clock. The person that they were with was well known to the landlord We believe it was a landlady, Mrs. Smith, who's now passed away. The pub is now a block of flats. So anybody who frequented the Fortune Award Public House, please make contact with us. And if you are Dennis Wise, come on, pick up the phone and just tell us, you with me, it was you and what you know. And that's it.
Okay, next question there. There's been recent publicity about missed shoe impression found around the Range Rover. Can you explain what the current situation is?
I think we have.
Yeah, I mean, basically, there are prints in and around the crime scene that have not been identified, and we've sent a report off to forensic scientists. Until they come back and say yes or no, we don't know one way or another. But it's quite clear that they are very similar to Reebok trainer prints, and some of them are undoubtedly Wellington boot prints. You know, we don't discount that there were Wellington boot prints there. How they got there is another question, because if you read the statements and you look at the crime scene log, there's only one potential person that could have been, and they've got his welly boots. So how they got there, we don't know. But it's up to the forensic scientists to resolve that one way or another.
But it was missed. Come on, guys. Shape up, do your crime scene management correctly. There are impressions in mud and snow that have not been measured. Get the old tape measurement up there and across there like the high tech, and photograph it and measure it. They were seen, and if you look at the index to the photographs that we have seen in poor quality, by the way, so we need to see the originals, you can see that there are impressions as described, and this information only came to us in January this year, and I'll put my hands up, I missed it as well. Too many people down that crime scene who shouldn't have been there, and the crime scene was damaged. There should have been plates put down, there should have been a tent up, and they should have done the job in a circle round to make sure nothing is missed. It was appalling, seriously.
One more question here. Albert, you have always been concerned about the crime scene. What is your current thinking about it?
Right, I keep looking at the photographs. I'm still concerned. Let me talk about the frost. 10 years later, the CCRC appoint a forensic expert to give his opinion as to why there was no frost on the Range Rover. His name is Adrian Brunacres, and he was briefed by the CCRC on the history of the case. And I've read his report, and I can understand where he's coming from to some degree, but what I can't understand totally is why there was no frost on the roof and on the bonnet. The trees are up close to the side, so I can accept that. But why is it taking 10 years? But also not to say in the same briefing note, by the way, the defence case says they were killed at midnight or after. Can you look at the circumstances around what the temperatures were and all forensic words, ology words I use, that I'm not switched up enough to understand totally. So I wanted to talk to him to say this is a defence case, would that have made a difference? So that to me is just a blinkered approach to uncovering the truth or uncovering why there was no frost. So that's the frost issue. Look at the Range Rover and all the tyres and the mud flaps. It's been in wheel spin for me because it's both sides of the mud flap. It's been somewhere else that night, I suggest. Yeah. So where was it? It looks like either in a field or on the side of a reservoir or wherever, light coloured. Same colour, by the way, that's on Tucker's boot. So hopefully there will be samples of that mud that was found on the Range Rover kept within the forensic services so that they can be checked again. So that's the mud. I look at the feet positions of Rolf, and I know they were taken at the police station. They should have been taken at the crime scene, but his left foot is on the brake and it's automatic, and his right foot is twisted up. The steering wheel is in the wrong position because blood doesn't flow horizontal. So clearly in the moving of the Range Rover, the wheel has moved so that the blood splattering on the steering wheel is out of position. There's blood tissue and blood splattering around the Range Rover that I'm not happy with, and that needs an expert to talk it through. The shotgun cartridges could have landed because we've had a shotgun expert stand there with us and explain it comes out the right hand side, and they could have landed there. Yeah, I was told 2 years ago that down the lane could have been or was a dump site and not the murder scene, and I said no, it didn't look like that to me, but the more I look at it in time, it's a possibility that I'm not ignoring. And then when you look at the inside of the Range Rover, in the footwell at the back where Pat Tate is sitting, for me, he's sitting right in the middle. And then he's shot in the belly there on the side of his chest, and his head goes that way against the window. Yeah, so for me, he's sitting there. Where was the room for Mr. Steele, either on his left or his right? And there are impressions on the carpet of the Range Rover that fit the footwear worn by Pat Tate. So where's the foot impression of Mr. Steele on the same carpet right next to him, a welly, whichever make? Yeah, because if he's got impressions on the carpet, then the guy sitting next to him should have impressions on the carpet. So that's missing for me. So that's come to light because I've read into the statements of the witnesses again to pick up on that. So, but as I said, the experts at the FSS, yeah, for me, needs a round the table discussion, debate to say, this is what I have uncovered as an experienced SIO and review officer. Can we have some answers, please? Yeah, and there are other points to raise, but that's enough for now.
But if I just say, I have examined that Range Rover with Angela Gallup and other forensic scientists, and you can't get in the back. It's so tight in the back of that Range Rover. He would have been, you know, everyone thinks a Range Rover's huge. It's not that big in the back of that one, I'll tell you, because he would have been sat in the middle. You know, his legs astride there, and he would have been sat in the middle. Someone of mixed steel size at the time, he wouldn't have got in there as well. And apart from that, in order to get in, you've got to effectively pull yourself up, either grab on the headrest or whatever. You would have to somehow pull yourself in to get in. There's no forensic retrievals at all inside that Range Rover. Angela Gallup says there should be. If someone else was in there, there should be. And so there's real concerns. And just very quickly from that as well, we have also, following that examination with Angela, we asked for the shotgun cartridges not to come to us, to go to a forensics lab, forensic access, to be examined using new techniques. They refused. Essex Police refused. Why would they refuse? You know, the fact is that it could very well prove or disprove the involvement of Mickey Steele and Jack Williams in these murders. But there's no reason why they shouldn't send those and all the other exhibits to be re-examined. Because if there's DNA or fingerprints using new techniques on those, you could either finally put the whole thing to rest and prove it, or you could finally disprove it, potentially with the named assassins that Billy Jasper puts forward. So it makes no sense why Essex Police won't do that, but they won't. They refuse.
Crazy. Right, we're starting to wind it up there, guys, but we're going to get you back on for another part with some questions and answers for from the subscribers and the viewers. But thank you ever so much.
Okay.